Hi everybody.
Hi guys.
Uh,
Hello.
Hello everybody. Today we will have our 9th edition of The Bridge. Today is June 25th, 2017, and we have the presenter of the subject today will be Laura Bruna, that many people already know. I have the pleasure to meet her when I was in Brazil in May, so it was really nice when I was there with Carla at CIEC. And she will be talking about evolutionary criticism, a really nice subject for everybody. And I'm gonna just explain to you guys how does it work, the bridge. Everybody maybe know, but Laura will do a presentation of the subject about 30 minutes. And after that, we'll have a 50 minutes debate. And we will have after that a 10-minute basic mobilization of energies. And we will be recording this event. And while we are not talking, we should leave our microphones on mute so we don't have any kind of issues with the sound. And before passing the mic to the microphone to Laura, I would like just to give everybody some news that we have here in Representation USA, that we have officially 2 more volunteers, Patricia Souza and Rodrigo Medeiros, that moved back to Florida. And they will start here, and we are going to improve a lot. We're going to have more activities here. So that's a really good news that I wanted to share with everybody.
Wow,
very good.
Yeah, we are going to have way more activities now with Rodrigo and Patricia, bringing more ideas, new blood for Representation USA here.
In which town are they living?
They are living in Fort Lauderdale, really close to the office and close to us here.
Oh, good.
So it's good. Now we have myself, Carla, Patricia Ribeiro, Rodrigo, and Patricia Souza as volunteers here. So we are growing a little bit more now, the group here. So that was the news that I wanted to give to you guys. And now I'm going to pass the microphone to Laura to start the presentation.
Okay, Sergio, so thank you. Hey guys, I think you all know myself already. I'm Laura. I have 27 years. I'm a psychology student living in Foz do Iguaçu for 4 years now. And I started researching this topic, this subject, in 2015 after a debate with Professor Valdo. He was talking to me about how I was very heterocritical, how I could criticize many other people, and I wasn't so much kind of self-critical in an evolutionary way. So that's how I started researching what is to be self-critical and how can we be more self-critical in an evolutionary way. Please, if you're not listening to me, tell me so that we can improve our sounds, okay? And I'm gonna speak through the 30 minutes and then you can all make your questions and we will debate. So we're going to talk about a bit about what is criticism in general, how to be an evolutionary critic, what is criticism inside conscienciological paradigm, how holochromality can be involved in criticism, how can we qualify our critical tool schemes, and what are the common difficulties that we see people having when dealing with criticism. We have lots of information on these slides, and maybe I won't be talking about everything that we have in the slides, but just some few topics that I think are the most important parts, okay? So what is criticism then in general? Criticism is any form of judgment, it's an appreciative examination, it's a judicious investigation, so it's basically being critical, being questionative, to question about reality and with a sense of judgment, not only to accept things as truth, but to question about them, to make an examination and to see if they are current, if they are true, by self-examination. So I started studying criticism in many areas, interphysical areas such as journalism, philosophy, also pedagogy, and I could understand why people think that criticism is a bad thing. It's a nosographic thing. Because really criticism is a neutral attribute of the consciousnesses, and it depends to their level of maturity, to their evolutionary level to use this attribute. And as our main population on the planet is very immature still, criticism is used as a form to attack, to judge, in a mischievous way and not in a clarifying way, as we're going to see that is the goal of evolutionary criticism. So as we are talking about criticism here, it's basic that we talk about the disbelief principle, which asks us not to believe in anything, to experiment, to have our own experimentations, our own experiences. So I'm gonna ask you not to believe in what I'm informing you guys here. This is just a beginning of a research, just some few things that I've accomplished in my research in 2 years. I'm sure you all have more to contribute to this research. And use the disbelief principle during all the presentation, okay? So evolutionary criticism is a proposal of using criticism to evolve, basically, to promote interconsensual recyclings and to accelerate the maturity of the interested consciousnesses, okay? So criticism is only evolutionary if we talk about consciousnesses that are interested. It doesn't have an effect, an evolutionary effect, if you try to do a criticism, if you try to give a critical feedback to a person that's not interested. You won't promote any interconsensual recyclings if the person is not interested, the person is not predisposed, the person does not want to evolve, okay? Basically, the process through we do this promotion of interconsensual recyclings with evolutionary criticism is through the cosmetic clarifying task, okay? So, for example, in a class or in a meeting, with the proposition of giving critical feedbacks and clarifying something, some reality that's not clear, is basically a clarifying task. So once I was in a mini tertulia, which was a meeting with Professor Baldo, I think all of you know that, he was talking about life, he was really emphasizing this statement. Life is movement, movement is recycling, and recycling is evolution. So if you're not moving, basically you're not alive, you're not living. The basic, the only stable thing in life is movement. And if you're not recycling, if you're not moving, you're not evolving, you're not going to the next steps, to the next levels, okay? And how do we evolve then? How do we promote these recyclings? One way is through criticism, okay? And when we base this attribute in the consensual paradigm, we are talking about using criticism to make self-researches, to put in practice the self-experimentation process. But we also take into consideration bioenergetical approaches, okay? The multidimensional context, and basically all the pillars of the consensual paradigm, okay? We take into consideration the extra-physical companies, both critical and criticized persons, okay, people. We take also in consideration the universality of our thought themes, the cosmetic way of approaching our consciousnesses, the consequences of the points we make, and also the promotion of thought-scenical autonomy, which is the main goal of being an assistential person inside the consensual paradigm. We're going to talk a bit about each of them. through the next slides. So we have to remember that conscienciology is a science, and it's not a religion, it's not a philosophy, it's not just a way of living, but it's a science also. And the way we make science inside the consciential paradigm is, we can say the methodology of conscienciology is through self-research. When the consciousness is at the same time the researcher and the object of research. And criticism is the tool through which we do this research. For example, a person might have a difficulty with, I don't know, going to the next level in the evolutionary scale. And with criticism, we can map that difficulty. We can see where the mistake is exactly, what is the weak trait that is, how can I say, that is not letting us go to the next step, to the next level. And so then we can look for solutions. We are going to see that some consciousnesses have difficulty with criticism, with recognizing that they have mistakes and they have gaps in their intraconscientiality. And it's not possible to look for solutions if we don't have a problem. So the first step to doing intraconsciential recyclings is to recognize that we have some weak traits, that we have things that could go better, that could be better. Okay. Also, self-experimentation is another pillar of conscienciology as a science, which says that don't believe in things. Go and have your own experiences and see if those cutting-edge truths of conscienciology, they are logical, they are useful, they are truth. So the critical person never accepts something as truth from the immediate point that they hear or see something. They have to investigate, they have to dissect all these truths to see if they are logical, if they are useful, okay? And also, we only have much more authority to talk about things that we have been through, okay? So I did a research with the most difficulties that people have facing criticism, and one of the most common difficulties is receiving a criticism, a critical feedback from a person that doesn't understand what the criticized is going through. So when we've been through the same experiences, we can have more authority to talk and to help the other person that is going through the same recycling that we've been through. Okay, so being honest with yourself and with the other person will help them much more. For example, you can say, okay, I have no idea what you're going through, but I think you're in that same cycle, vicious cycle, because of something I see, and then you give your critical feedback. Okay, even though you haven't been on that situation, it will allow the other person to open up for your criticism much more than if you talk about it as if you have been experienced the same thing and you haven't. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Well, going through the next steps, evolutionary criticism takes into consideration modifications in the energetic patterns. So, for example, sometimes a person doesn't say anything, but the energy the person spreads says it all. Okay, so, and sometimes something that seems truth from the interdimensional, from one-dimensional point of view, when you look multidimensionally to the same thing, you will see that the reality is much more larger, much more variety are within what's been analyzed. Somebody can hear conversation? I continue? Okay, so
please explain your slides.
How can I do that? But then I can see them.
Okay.
Yeah?
Perfect.
But then I can see.
Okay.
So, next pillar of conscienciology that evolutionary criticism takes into consideration is the multidimensional contexts. Well, we live and we manifest ourselves in several dimensions, and for example, if you look many situations from only the intraphysical point of view, you likely to get one side and or another. We will defend one person than the other. One person will seem like a victim, and the other will seem like the victimizer. I don't know. And when you expand these views from a multidimensional context, maybe you will see things change a lot, as well as your maturity to evaluate situations will amplify with having experiences such as those we have during lucid projections, if compared to a person that doesn't have all this access to other dimensions. Extra-physical companies also are a point to be considered. Is alone. There is an idea that caught my attention very much, which is no thought is only yours. So you have to consider if your criticism that you are thinking about is only yours or it's being influenced by other consciousness, especially extra-physical companies that want to, I don't know, just unbalance another person or to be an intruder on their thought scenes. So the evolutionary critic has to take that into considerations and see who is behind all the behaviors, those cynical behaviors that you're doing, okay? So another point that we have to be aware of is multiple lives, okay? We live much more lives than only one, and with this view of the path that the person has been through, trying to recycle a weak trait, for example, you can go beyond the punitive and the anti-evolutionary judgment. And as if when you look just one life, you're likely to go directly to the judgmental those scenes, which will not help the person. It has no effect, no evolutionary effect. If you see a person with a weak trait and you say, oh, you are acting like an intruder, that won't help, okay? You have to try and understand with the person, why is she acting that way? What is behind all this behavior, all the context? So it's to expand our views from only one life to multiple, okay? And universalism. It goes beyond localism, nationalisms, and cultural ideologies, okay? So it's not to defend one person through another. It's to take into consideration what is best for everyone involved. Then your criticism will take much more evolutionary effect, okay? And that's where cosmoethics go in, okay? Taking into consideration a broader understanding of the consequences of our actions, of the critical feedbacks that we give. So, for example, is our criticism more nosographic or more cosmoethic? And both will have consequences, okay, that will go on. For example, some of our actions perpetuate loads of mandatory bondings because we are unaware of the consequences. We don't reflect previously of the consequences of our actions, okay? And to be critical is a way of do the prophylaxy of such a consequence. So, for example, to be a critical person, you have to go beyond good intentions, okay? You have to rethink, you have to analyze what you are doing and what consequences might result from what you are doing. You have to go also beyond personal daily interests, okay, to invest in a holokarmic profits that will take you much more results, good results than debits, okay, than debts. So, and also to promote docenical autonomy is to promote other consciousness freedom. You cannot expect a person to want to evolve if the person doesn't want to, or you cannot expect to evolve by the person, okay? So it's to respect their evolutionary level, the actions that they take, their free will, okay? So nothing will come of good if you criticize a person that can't understand um, the same as you do, if you know what I mean. So how can we qualify our critical thought scenes then? Of course, there are many other ways that we can do this, and this is just a quick, very quick exposition of ideas of and examples of how we could qualify our critical thought scenes. But I give here 3 examples, which are: clarify to yourself what is the most common type of criticism that is a habit to you. Are you more hypercritical, you're balanced critical, or you're not critical at all, and why? Okay. So the second example is research the quality of your criticism and how it affects other people's and the environment around you. Okay. So is your criticism more homeostatic or more nosographic, and why also? Okay, because sometimes sometimes and in some areas, our criticism is more nosographic because of interconsensual, as can I say, for example, when you're going through a rough time and criticism starts to serve as a symptom, as a signal that something is not going on. So researching the quality of your criticism may give you more insights of how and why your criticism is that way. And also, after you clarify the type of criticism and the quality, establish a cosmetic critical code. Okay, this is something that I did to myself in order not to allow myself to be critical in a way that I saw it wasn't evolutionary, for example. So insert directions to qualify your criticism that are related to yourself. For example, one of my clauses, one of my directions were I will only be critical when it's to assist another person, when the person is open to it, okay? And once I see that the person can take what I will tell them, because sometimes the person wants a feedback, but you see that the person doesn't have structure to receive that feedback, so it will be untie my personal cosmetic code to do a criticism, to give a critical feedback for a person that can take it, okay? So also in this research, I saw some common difficulties when people deal with criticism in general and also on the evolutionary context. So for example, many people have phobia of being self-critical, okay? These people can take reflections. They are afraid to get in touch with themselves. Okay. Others have phobia of being criticized, of being exposed, especially in public. So this is a very common phobia. And whenever you're going to give a critical feedback, even though you want to help the other person and the other person is open to clarification, please take care when you're doing it in public, because many people have traumas related to being hyper-exposed in public, okay? And also some people have phobia of giving feedback to others, and this is something I didn't know existed, okay? And many of them are afraid of self-positioning, of talking about and expressing their own opinions and what they think is the best for a situation, for example. And I put here some possible causes for these phobias and these difficulties is that we associate a lot criticism with a bad thing, a way of misjudging other people and attacking. This is given to, as I said before, immaturity and a lack of consciousness of the consequences of misusing criticism, okay? Another possible cause is many of us have had bad past experiences. For example, in past lives, sometimes we've been hyperexposed to delicate informations. We've been through some traumatic situations. For example, when you are responsible for a large number of people, and you're not very mature to deal with all that complexity, and you expose your opinion about the situation, and it takes to a very bad situation, for example, it becomes a trauma to you, okay? So that's why it can be one of the reasons a person has phobia, for example, of being critical in public, okay? Another very common cause of difficulties with dealing with criticism when dealing is self-corruption, okay? Many people know, and it's very, of course, acceptable for the main evolutionary levels of consciousness that live in Earth, on Earth, that we have flaws, we make mistakes, we are not perfect, we are not evolved. And some people don't want to assume that, don't want to get in touch with that part of themselves, don't want to see, as I put on the slides, their consciometric picture, okay? And which is a shame, because we can change if we don't recognize the recyclings that we have to do, okay? Moving on, I put 3 examples of how to overcome these phobias and these difficulties. For example, start with the help of somebody. So if you have too much difficulty in dealing with criticism, you're too vulnerable for it, please look for therapy. And if it's a multidimensional context, you can look for consensual therapy. They will likely to help you. Another example or they will give you more critical, so that you can work with the situation on the therapeutic set, okay, with the insights of the helpers. The second example or suggestion that I give is start asking feedbacks of loved and trusted people, okay, people you know you won't want to hurt you, that will help you to overcome the situation. Also, people that are, how can I say, that are a reference to you in that area, okay? So if you have a problem, you don't know how to deal with it, and you know a person that is a specialist on that area, that you know will help you go through all the recycling and all the difficulties that you need to do, look for that person. You know the person won't just give you judgmental feedback alone, okay? And the third suggestion that I give is start giving small and unimportant feedback of positive qualities, okay? Whenever you have a difficulty dealing with any attribute of the consciousness, please start looking for the positive side first. It will be much easier. It's likely you will use your strong traits in that area, okay? And start small, start doing unimportant feedback of positive qualities, for example, for your children, your evolutionary duo, your friends, and also always for people who ask, okay? Don't give feedback for a person who doesn't need your feedback. And basically, that's very fast. That's just a glimpse of what the research, 2 years of research has been done, okay? I just wanted you to have a notion of what I've been researched. I'm chronometric on 30 minutes now, Sergio, so we can start the debate. How can I do? So, no, it's not stop sharing. Stop sharing. Stop sharing. That's it.
Okay, now we can officially start the debate after the presentation of Bruna.
I know it was many very superficial in a way and very much a lot of information. This thanks. some there she goes.
Sorry. Hello, everybody. Hi. I was just is it good? Okay. Hi, everybody. I was just saying to Laura that's wonderful for 2 years of research and how much she has already covered. And I was saying that hopefully soon she will have even more as far as tips to give us for all of us. Probably this is something that we still have to work on, and a trait that it's not easy to deal with, because obviously criticism is something that is close to even the reasoning itself. So we have the capacity to criticize. Everybody is a fantastic critical person as regards criticism, but there's still a lot of ground to cover as regards evolutionary self-criticism. So I was just expressing that to Laura. So, okay, back to you.
Thanks, Lily. I was wondering what difficulties you guys have when dealing with criticism, and if you have any doubts about any of the exposed information. If you think it has logic, well, I don't know.
Yes, Laura, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
When I see that a friend or sometimes does something very wrong, doesn't ask me for help, I don't see anything. It omissions are not.
Your sound has problem. Can you retell, Kate?
Okay. Do you understand me now? Do you hear me? Yes. My question is, when I have a friend and I see he's doing something very wrong, but he does not ask me for help, isn't it an omission to say nothing to him?
Okay, I see your question. No, I don't think it depends a lot on the openness of that person. Mm-hmm. Maybe you can look for a way of talking to the person, maybe in particular, okay, in a way that you make it clear that you want to inform that person of the harm that maybe he's doing. Mm-hmm. But there are those situations when we have to position ourselves in public. I was just talking about when I say be careful with this situation, because it can be harmful. Many people have their own points of view and many points of view of the same feedback that you will give. Okay, so just it is to use your discernment, but don't be omissive. If you think it will be the best for the group and mm-hmm. for that person, of course, you will have to position yourself and you have to clarify the situation. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm a lot of times thinking, oh, have I to say something because it's an omission? If I don't say something, maybe I could do a very important help. So I'm always thinking about the omission. Yeah. Thank you.
One other thing is I try to do a small feedback for the person and see if he catches, see if it's effective. If you try a lot of times, okay, several times, and you see that the person is not open, he won't change, he already knows, but he is doing it on purpose, then you have to try other ways.
Okay, and not in the public, maybe in
maybe, yes. Like you have to research what is involved. For example, maybe a public image, maybe a position inside that group. You have to see, to amplify why the person is acting in such a way.
In such a way, yes. And I can ask him, why are you acting in such a way?
Yes, you can. Yes, why not?
Okay. Yeah.
You are free.
Thanks.
Just to make it clear.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Laura.
No problem. Bjorn is coming to ask.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura, for your impressions here. It's very interesting. Oops. You have talked also to the cosmetics of critics. So when I think about cosmetics, it's also a question of my part. So the one who is open or not is open for critics, how can I develop my cosmetics? Last week I had one debate about the non-violent communication. I think this is a good technique to work it out, that I can see how is my aggressiveness. Do I act to help like a sister part or a helper, or do I go into the ballistic way? Can you talk a little about this? Because I think it's not only the point one by one. Many times we have a group situation, and in a group situation it's much more complex. So when I cannot talk to one directly, is it good to talk in the group about it, or is it better to leave the process rolling? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a complex question, Jorn. Of course, you won't just have to take in consideration your cosmetics and the other person's. All these informations, all these ideas that I brought are parts, so you can try to discern what's best for everyone involved. Okay, it's not just it's not a receipt, but are parts that you can take into consideration. So if you checked your cosmetics, you cannot be in omission. Okay, you have to talk. You have checked and you have seen that you need to talk, for example, let's say, and you see that there are helpers interested in the clarification of the group. Okay, it's likely that the result will be nice, will be okay, will be effective. So you go on and you try. And you chat also with the energies, because sometimes you give a feedback and it results in conflict, but it's what the group needed to break down their closeness, their close-mindedness. See, so it's not because the result of a criticism is conflict that it was a bad thing. See, but I think that the more you think. The more varieties that you prepare, the more your criticism will be effective. And you're likely to discern, well, this conflict is a good result to break the close-mindedness, or is it a reverberation, nosographic reverberation? I don't know if you clarified your...
It is also that you do criticism in the multidimensional way. Is it right? Have you experienced that?
For example, yes. For example, you can try meeting that consciousness that is closed intraphysically during a lucid projection, for example. I have done that before, and I had bad experiences when I started talking violently, for example, talking anything that came up to my mind. And also I have some encounters where I could talk sincere to a person about what was going on, okay? So that's another technique that we can use. For example, sometimes the person is intraphysically closed, but extraphysically is open, okay? It's the same situation. For example, a person is closed in group, but sometimes it's open on the personal side, and also vice versa. Of course, a person is closed when one-to-one, but it's open in group. So it all depends. You have to check from each case to each case.
So in this case, you're working in a extra physical team together and as a mini piece, and I think this can help also when you talk about energies and when you feel when you have the possibility to go in contact with the people or go in contact with the group. So I think the extra physical work here with energies and the equipex, the extra physical team, is very important.
Yes, yes, it is. I have experiences, Jorn. Have experiences where when sometimes you're assimilated with lots of energies, nosographic energies, and everything you say to a person, even though everything is all right, your intention is qualified, you are with a helper, it's what the group or the person needs. But when you are with nosographic energies in your psychosphere, it's like the person can't understand nothing that you say. It distorts everything that you say. So it's important during a criticism to qualify the energies that you send to the criticized. Yes, as much as possible, of course. Okay.
Hello, Laura, and hello, everyone. Very nice presentation. Congratulations. Very important topic as well. This morning, we're talking about conviviality. It's a very important tool to improve the quality of our conviviality. Very interesting. My question for you is how you deal or do you approach a situation that you have someone who's very close, very intimate, like a relative, and you were watching the person taking some actions or making some decisions that won't be so good for the person, but also will affect you negatively in the future, you and your group. And you think that the person, if you say something directly, the person will not understand because you're too intimate. How would you approach a situation like this?
Okay. Well, this is a topic that was a difficulty I had, and I also have, of course. But one thing that I have been trying is turning what I want to say to the other person, the feedback that I want to give, into a question. Okay, so I don't tell the person, no, you shouldn't do that. You should do the other thing. I try to question. Look, why are you doing this? Have you seen what you're doing? So that I make the other person question. Because, of course, our goal here is to promote awareness so that the other person can choose to do what's best. Because sometimes you have a wider notion of reality that the other person doesn't have, and you cannot take it's her or his free will. You cannot stop the person from acting, right? So you try to ask the person, try to clarify, see if the question is open the person a little bit, and then when you see a little bit of space, you clarify. When you don't see, you question, and you go trying. It's a technique that I've been using.
So you're leading the person to develop her or him self-criticism.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good approach. Sometimes I also try to use helpers, intraphysical helpers, or maybe to approach the person through other people.
Yeah. Sometimes we say something and it doesn't work, and then the neighbor says the same thing and it works. It's because of the approach and sometimes the background that person has is more positive with the person than ours. Okay, so sometimes it's not the time for us to approach, sometimes it's not the place. Okay, so leave the door open and see when it's possible to say something.
So you're saying that we must really use our evolutionary intelligence and patience day by day. Okay, thank you very much. No problem.
Hey, Hui, I see your the mic on. Do you want to make a question? No problem if you don't. I think he's not hearing me. Anyway. So guys, have you had any problem, for example, with a consequence of a nosographic criticism, for example? Like an energetic consequence, or what is the most difficulty for you dealing with criticism? Jorn, do you want to make a question?
Yes, I have experience when my critic was not good, when my critic has something very ballistic, or when I was going very confronting the people. And I was thinking, wow, we are intermissivists, so we have to be heterocritics, and I forced the things. Then I felt very, very directly an extra physical energy which was fighting with me. So it was at least something where I hurt myself. It was nothing existential. Even when I have a good intention. So when my intention was good, I was thinking, yes, it was good. But it is not when I was slipping into my old habits, which I maybe had long time before, and I go again in that area of being ballistic. So then I felt it very strong. Another thing is I felt it in the group situation when we had some problems with our critics and we had some process. So, for example, the one person or group is closed because there is a process he or she or the group has to do. This process needs time. And when we disturb, or when I disturb this process in the wrong moment, this is, of course, something what you can feel, or what I can feel energetically, that it is wrong. So it is always something of having a feeling of the right moment to say something. This is, I think, very important. And what I felt is when there's no way to talk directly or interphysically, I can use the assistance in the penta, for example. So I can take the group or the people in the penta and to work there more on the extra physical side. Sometimes it is that I felt for myself that I was intoxicated of the problem. So I have first to work on myself, and then I can go into critique. So when I was involved of the situation, there was no way. And when I clean my side, let's say it like this, or when I work on my holosocene, that I will not be intoxicated when I talk to the people, then I can try it again. But this has to be very. You have to take care of the right moment, even then. So I think this is not easy to handle.
Yeah, one clause that I took to myself is whenever I perceive I'm involved in the situation, especially emotionally, I retrieve, I take back, I won't say anything, okay, and then I will make my own recyclings first, then I will say something to the other person, because whatever I say at that moment, I will be saying more to myself than to the other person, okay? So this is an habit that I'm trying to establish to myself. Whenever I am involved and I'm not sure that I'm talking to myself or to the other person, I won't say anything, and I'll go to my self-reflections, my own reflections first. Then I will say something to the other person.
The point that we had before in relationship, I think it's something which is very special, because relationship is very close. We are always in our coupling, or very often in couplings with our relation. So I think this is very special when we have critics here. And my opinion is we're doing well when we are going for cultivate the criticism. So maybe to give some signals when we are open, or when the other is not open to give a signal, here's something, or do not hurt me, or something like that. I think this is something which is a little special. What do you think?
Yeah. I think it's couples, or when the other person does not agree to make these signals, you can create this to your own self, like a self-protection. For example, when some person comes giving me a critical feedback, and it's something that I know I'm vulnerable on that area, I won't be able to deal with that with that attribute at that moment. What do I see? What do I say? I say thank you. I register it in my mind, or even written, and then I will research. I will self-reflect about it later, because I know my timing. I know I won't be able to recycle that attribute or that trait at that moment. So this is a self-protection, because I cannot be in evolutionary crisis all the moment, okay? It needs to be one by one. I know there are many things I need to recycle, and I think many people do have many things to recycle, but we need to maintain a stability, a minimum stability to function, okay? And then one by one you start recycling. But of course I don't lose track of all these feedbacks that I received, and all of the traits that I need to recycle. And I don't stop doing my actions, for example, because I have, for example, a weak trait, or that I will receive a critical feedback, for example. It will happen, but I can't be stopped by it, for example. Right.
I think in this case it's also good to think about my own necessities and the necessities of the other. And in the relationship, I think it's good to know what the other need is, so that you can see, okay, here there is something I could not force anymore, because this is the borderline there.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it comes your just something in that principle that your rights end up where the other person's rights start. So if you have self-criticism, you won't want to go for to stop that take the rights of the other person. See, if you are a person that is self-critical, why would you do that? Why would you do something that is harmful for the other person, especially a person that you like, for example?
Well, it is interesting because you were talking about rights, the other people rights, and I was thinking about respect. You said that sometimes we need to protect ourselves, and that's totally right. It's a self-respect, and if you learn how to respect yourself, probably you respect the other people limits, and you be patient to see what they really need. And I remembered one situation that I noticed that someone was trying to start a fight with me. And the person very cleverly asked me, oh, the person asked me, oh, could you tell me my weak traits? And I just felt in the energies that the intention was not really okay. And I answered the person, no, do your self-research. I'm talking about other things here. That's not the right moment to start talking about your weak traits. And then the person said, okay, so I'll give you some feedback about your weak traits. And I just positioned myself and said, no, I didn't ask you. That's not the topic, but it's hard to do. It's really hard to do. We need practice to do these things. So what do you think about this respect, self-respect and respect to everyone?
Yes, Patricia. I started recycling my type of criticism when I started being aware that criticism could really hurt other people. For me, it was important to say, just to talk about what I was thinking about, how I was seeing some situations. But then I started thinking, no, it's hurting other people. So I started conflicting myself with two values. Okay, I want to be free to speak, to express myself, but I also don't want to hurt other people. So what is wrong with these two values? They seem okay. They seem homeostatic values. So I started researching, and I saw it was the way I was talking, the moment, many other varieties. So I started trying to take into consideration this variety so that I wouldn't hurt the other person, but also I could respect myself and I could validate my view, my critical view of the situation. Also, other thing is I discovered my criticism was very a symptom of a rough moment I was living. Okay, so when I started resolving the rough moment, my criticism qualified myself. Qualified, and also I discovered that not hurting other people was making me feel better. It was qualifying my those scenes, my energies, the type of extra-physical consciousnesses that I was having contact with. So I discovered that not hurting other people, not using my criticism to hurt other people, was also being respectful, self-respectful, respectful to me. And then that's why I started, no, okay, it's not worth to be hypercritical, nosographically critical. Let's do this again. Let's do this in another way. So I think respect it's the basis of evolutionary criticism, really.
I quite agree with you. And when you hurt someone, even if words, they're weird, building and interpreting.
Yes.
So you're actually harassing the person, and we're acting as intruders.
Yes. And one thing that I wanted to say is that when you hurt the other person is because you are very accustomed to hurting your own self. If you're badly critical to other people, it's because you are very critical to your own self. So first you start recycling the criticism that you direct to other people, and then you start to see that that habit was only exteriorized from some habits that you have within you. And then that's another part of the interconsensual recycling, is to qualify your critical habits with your own self, with your, when nobody's looking and nobody's hearing.
Okay, so the best assistant is the one who knows how to assist himself or herself.
Yeah.
That's one principle of evolution, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I was thinking here, saying the truth all the time is not exactly assistential. Sometimes we can also omit the truth or omit ourselves, but it will be better for the person or for the group. So how can we distinguish the right time that our omission is positive or our omission is negative? A very simple question. Very easy to know. Just simple as that.
Yeah, it's not easy. Using discernment and criticism is always an exercise. It's every time it's different, and that's why you have to be critical for yourself. I cannot tell you, okay, in this situation it will be right, or in that situation it won't. I think the only thing a helper, for example, can do is help you to be self-critical, to have your own self-discernment, to think by yourself. And he can also give you indicators. Look, at the last time you did this, for example, it resulted in these situations with this profile of people. Usually this is what happens, and you start feeling the situation and using your discernment from time to time. Okay, I'm one of these people, those people who wanted to tell the truth all the time. I was thinking we should be transparent. We should tell the truth. Whole transparency all the time. We don't, and we also we are not just dealing with truths. We're dealing with the ways that people see a same situation. We have the fact, and we have many points of view about that fact. So what we call saying the truth actually is exposing many points of view that reflects a seriality, many experiences. Certain to make to bring about conflict in some points.
Yes, sometimes a person calls himself authentic, but the real intention is just to hurt someone by saying the truth. No, I must say the truth. So we really need to learn and how to balance these things. And that's what you said. Experience is the right path. And if it goes wrong, just try another time in a different way. And we learn step by step. Okay.
Another thing I wanted to say is that we can unmystify or demystify, I don't know, take the mystification of the person who wants to hurt the other, for example, because of course this person is how can I say, has a disease, a kind of it's immature, yes. and needs help. Sometimes the person's way of asking for help is being critical and shouting, and but in the end, what the person really is saying is that, look, I cannot deal with this situation in any possible way. I need help. Sometimes the person is shouting for help, but we can't see through. Okay, so to go beyond saying, what does this person need? How can I help this person? You see, our criticism go for another.
It's because we sometimes react, we want to protect ourselves from maybe a strong and not so nice energy. And we do not notice that we start judging the person and we are not acting as helpers. And that's very different. Thank you.
And that's where omission is effective, right? For example, okay, you cannot deal with that situation, with that person, with those energies, but at least try not to worsen the situation. Yeah, just and then when you are more strong, needing at that time. Why was that person acting that way? And also you can take into consideration our sexological relations. Why is that person reacting in such a way with you specifically? Why do you trigger that person's difficulty? Okay, not to say that you are guilty of that, no, but maybe because you understand the way, the path that that person has been going through several lives, trying to recycle, for example.
Okay, Laura. During our presentation, I had some reflections, and I was wondering how evolved consciousness expressed this trait, the evolutionary criticism. And then I came to a question. Do you think it's possible to be critical without using a verbal communication, for instance, through the exemplarism? What is your opinion?
Yeah. I think actually is the most effective way bioenergetical changes, and also the cosmos gives us feedback all the time. So for example, you are trying, that is a critical feedback, is saying to you, no, don't go that way because I don't know, you can, and then you can make your interpretation of the fact. But you can see how the way I act in relation to you, in relation in the situations that we are together, for example, when we are working together. So all this can be a feedback. Need to say anything. This person can observe, oh, that person is reacting to myself in energies reverberate on the field of energies that we are involved, and can change and recycling. For example, I do this the whole time. For example, when I am in a bus and I'm thinking about something, or I am with a pattern of energies, for example, a kind of energies, kind of those scenes, and I see how a person reacts to me. The person doesn't say anything, but I know why that person reacted to myself, because I am self-observing all the time. So I promote self-recycling just for the feedback, just based on the feedback that these people give me without saying anything, for example. And this is the whole time in any situations that I'm in. It's like when you, for example, you give a class and a person starts to yawn, and I don't know, of course can be an interaction with extra physical consciousness. You are a teacher a long time, you know, for example, that the teachers read how the students react to their classes, right? To the topic as well. So this is a criticism, this is a feedback, and we can use it just by the example of the other people to recycle. The example of that person is very impactful. I don't know, it impacts you a lot. For example, here every day, and some kind of actions and reactions that he had concerning some types of person that I had difficulty dealing with were examples to me and were critic feedbacks to me, okay, because I was like comparing, oh wow, I have very much difficulty dealing with that person because of this and that, and he doesn't, and he can manage. And then I started learning, what can I do to come from where I am and to where he is, for example. Well, it's I think actually, Paulo, is what happens when you are on the intermissive course. You are taken from an environment that you are accustomed with, and you are put in a very much more homeostatic environment. But just by being in that environment gives you a feedback of, gives you a diagnosis of how your tocinity is, how your level of evolution is, how you can be, for example.
Very, very clarifying answer. Thank you, Laura.
Aspect or a doubt regarding this non-verbal.
Sorry, Regina, your sound is very low.
Okay, can you hear me better now? Yes, Paulo could, but you couldn't.
Is it because I turned it off when she talks?
Okay, maybe.
Oh, now, yes.
Now, I have a doubt or a question regarding this non-verbal feedback I was referring to. I think that could work pretty well if someone is reflective, like you were describing from yourself. I think that or if someone is very, very insecure, because if you don't say anything or if you don't verbalize your criticism, for example, he could think about, okay, she does not say anything, I don't know what she's thinking about, and something like that. So someone can really get worried about what you might think if you don't verbalize. Really insecure with him or herself, so he might really create a kind of mess in his own mind, what it has to mean, or what it says that you are not verbalizing anything, just saying silence, you know. So that would be my doubt.
Okay. It has to do with internal and external locus of control, I think. Your goals are, why are you being critical to in a certain situation, for example. So it's more likely that you will be self-secure if you are more self-critical, if you reflect, and if you know a lot about yourself. Okay, so to give a diagnosis more precise than you can do for your own self, it's likely you will value the other person's feedback more than your own, and will make it more difficult for you to be critical. Part of being a critical person is to question the validity of another person's feedback, right? And so that you can put the value on your own criticism more than on the other person's. You were saying, you were going to say?
No, I mean, if you interact with an insecure person,
Okay.
and you do not express yourself verbally, he might think that you, I don't know, whatever, because it's his own cinema in his own mind. People, and then also intrusion kicks in. So the people say or think, okay, she's not saying anything. Oh, she might think this or she might think that. So people creating a kind of mess in their head, maybe also something you would not express or you don't even think, but they have their own cinema running in their own head. So sometimes I think it could be a risk not to express your criticism verbally, because people might overthink your silence, you know. This is what I meant.
Okay, I understood now. Guys, I think it's we have to, we cannot be afraid of being critical. We cannot be responsible for how the other person will react on our criticism. We can only self-research ourselves to qualify our intentions and the way we do the criticism and why we do it, to be more assistential and more clarifying. Okay, but how the other be sure of how the person will react, but we can study that reaction and we can see if it's not something that we are contributing for, right? So why does that, as I said to Patricia, why is that person having this reaction with you specifically, on with that context specifically? So why? Because sometimes it says something about the background that you both have serologically, okay? And then you will understand sometimes this movie that you said and the interpretation that the person gives has nothing to do really with what you said, but with a past situation that is stopped between you two and needs to be resolved, okay? And that's why you need to hear so scenically tell you more, and I don't know, the interactions with the helpers maybe inspire you about a situation that can be resolved in this situation.
Yeah, I think it could be one possibility, and the other thing could be also a cognitive distortion, for example, or something that you remind the person. I think could be multifactorial. So it's really, yeah, it's a tough topic, right?
Yeah. And also, I think, of course, it can have nothing to do with you, but as the person is in front of you, maybe you could ask yourself, what can I do to help this other person? And okay, you were reminding a person of something that has nothing to do with you. Anything to that person at all. It's something that happens only with this person in specific or with other people. Is it a pattern? Well, it's something to research. Whenever it unbalances us or bothers us, there is something that we could learn about.
Okay, so now I think we can end this debate. I think we could stay for a few hours debating, but unfortunately we need to finish right now. And right now, Laura will conduct a basic mobilization of energies for about 10 minutes. And after that, we're gonna end this edition of the bridge.
Okay, Sergio, thank you. So, guys, we are now starting the basic mobilization of energies. Oh, I need a help here.
You do not want to see the oven.
No, I think
Okay.
okay. I did some notes so that I won't forget anything. Well, let's look for a comfortable position in our chairs. Relaxing, relaxing the mind and relaxing the body. And let's start to pay attention. Start to bring the energies from your feet to the upper head. Passing through all the chakras and mini chakras. Inside and outside your whole holosoma. Bottom of your feet to the top of your head, and from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Until you reach the vibrational state. Install the vibrational state. vibrational state for a bit longer. Now, from the vibrational state, let's start expanding our energies. Expand your energies with the intention of de-assimilating any stored energies. Now let's do the opposite move. Let's start absorbing the energies installed by us and the extra-physical helpers of the bridge. Absorb the energies a bit more. And slowly start reconnecting to the intraphysical body, to the place around you. And to our lecture here. Is everyone okay? Well, guys, I'd like to thank you all for this debate and for all the energies and for being here, okay? Thanks for the opportunity. I learned a lot during the preparation of this debate and hope to see you soon.
Okay, thank you, Laura, for this presentation. It was really good. And thank you, everybody, for being here. And we hope to see you again in our next The Bridge. Paulo, do we have already the date for the next one?
Yes, Sergio. We would like to thank you for participating. Yeah? We'd like to thank you all for participating today. And our next The Bridge will be on 16th of July. And it will be our first The Bridge in Spanish with the very experienced teacher, Malu Balona.
Oh, nice.
And we'd like also to thank you, Sergio, for the great moderation and Laura for the great presentation. Very interesting subject. And I think that's it.
Okay, thanks, everybody, and see you next time.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you all.
Laura, thank you. Good.
See you. Bye.